My name is Claudia Perez, and I am from the small valley town of Vinales, Cuba, known for its lush greenery, limestone hills, and tobacco fields. My father worked the tobacco fields for very little pay, while my mother worked as a cashier at the local grocery store. I attended and graduated university in Santa Clara, Cuba, where I have been living ever since. I am a civil rights activist and have been my entire adult life. Here are some human rights issues of my country that I would like to share with you. In order to understand the human rights of Cuba, you must first understand a little of the history. Fidel Castro assumed power in 1959 in what was known as the Cuban Revolution. Castro, a proclaimed Marxist socialist, won over the people by talk of a free, liberated Cuba. He spoke of free education for all people and universal health care. He spoke of a better way of life for all people. But shortly after he took power, he started repressing the Cuban people. He banned all political parties, executed his political opponents, and censored the press. As Castro increasingly started aligning with the communist Soviet Union, he was seen as a threat to the United States in the time of the Cold War when the United States was doing all they could to combat communism. In 1962, President J.F. Kennedy, in an attempt to hurt the Cuban economy, enacted an embargo that halted all trade between Cuba and the United States. As a result, the Cuban people are still facing economic hardship that is present in their poor living conditions, crumbling infrastructure, and vintage cars left over from before the embargo. In the 1980s, many Cubans fled to Miami, Florida, seeking political asylum from the harsh government-controlled conditions of Cuba under Fidel Castro. This was during a time when Castro briefly opened up travel between the United States and Cuba. Today, those leaving Cuba seek economic relief. As a communist country, everything in Cuba is owned and operated by the government, all the stores, the restaurants, etc. The Cuban government has a monopoly over all media outlets, TV, radio, internet services, and the press. And Cuba is one of the most restricted climates for the press. Cuban dissidents who oppose official policy face harsh punishment, including detainment, loss of employment, and travel bans. So what is life like for the ordinary Cuban? Well, the ordinary Cuban makes just on average 15 US dollars per month, while teachers on average make $25 per month and doctors make on average of $40 per month. Most people in Cuba supplement their income with side jobs. People are supplied a monthly ration of food from the government consisting of such things as beans, coffee, cooking oil, and rice. The food supply is not enough for most families. The housing, which is also owned and operated by the government, is in terrible disrepair. In the city of Havana, nearly 3 buildings partially or fully collapse on a daily basis. Cuba is facing an acute housing crisis as many Cubans live in dangerous, dilapidated homes on the verge of collapse. The education system. So Castro has done some important things for the Cuban people. All children receive a free education system, a free education. Schools open up early in the morning and offer after-school program. All children receive free breakfast and lunch, and Cuba has one of the highest literacy rates in all the Americas. Education is free on all levels, including university. Cuba's healthcare system is among the best in the world. Cuba places emphasis on preventative and primary care that has expanded to people in the coastal and mountain regions with the development of the Rural Medical Services Project, which built polyclinics in rural Cuba and enlisted medical staff to work these clinics. By the 1990s, medical care had expanded to nearly 95% of the island. And polyclinics today have expanded their services to include specialty services that were once offered only in hospitals. As a woman in Cuba, I am afforded equal rights as men. Women participate in the labor force and hold political seats in parliament. Despite Cuba's gender equality, Cuban women still make up only 38% of the workforce and have less access to high-paying jobs, thus making on average only half that of what a man makes. LGBT rights. As an LGBT activist, I am interested in LGBT rights. So Cuba has made some progress, but still has a ways to go. The Cuban government has a long history of oppressing the LGBT community. From the time of the Cuban Revolution in 1959 to the 1970s, Cuba detained gay men and sent them to labor camps as a punishment for being gay. In 1979, Cuba legalized homosexual behavior. So being gay was considered illegal up until 1979. And in 2013, Cuba made progress by passing a same-sex marriage law. However, it was quickly reversed due to pushback from religious organizations. So there's a growing dissident movement in Cuba that includes the Ladies in White, which is a group of wives and mothers of political prisoners who can be seen marching through the streets of Havana, Cuba every Sunday after church. They are marching for the release of their family members and political prisoner reform. And today I am a part of a small group of dissidents that help families flee economic hardship of Cuba, mostly to Miami, Florida, in the United States, where they meet up with family members and loved ones. So to summarize, I love the beauty and the people of my country. We are kind, hardworking people who enjoy life despite our struggles. We celebrate our heritage through music, dance, and food and style. We enjoy the best coffee, rum, and tobacco the world has to offer. I love my country and the culture of my people, but I detest the oppression of the Cuban government. I am an activist at heart and will continue to fight for a better life for all my people of my beloved Cuba.